Okay, here we go. Chapter 4, Mr. Tabby's Trip. Ben and Pearl skidded to a stop outside the tall wrought iron gate that guarded the old button factory. A heavy padlock hung from the bars with a sign that read, "Welcome to Dr. Wu's Worm Hospital. Dr. Wu does not treat dogs, cats, pigs, rats, snakes, turtles, fish, frogs, or any other creature that is not a worm. Dr. Wu sees worms by appointment only. If you do not have an appointment, keep out." I don't know if you can see that. Fortunately, Pearl and Ben had an appointment. Their apprenticeships were scheduled to begin at precisely 8 a.m. "We're 2 minutes early," Ben reported. "Early is better than late," Pearl said. She didn't want to give Dr. Wu a reason to fire her. So with her hands wrapped around the bars, Pearl peered through the gate, watching for the hospital's front door to open. Would Mr. Tabby come to get them, or would Dr. Wu? The concrete building, which had once housed the Buttonville Button Factory, stood 10 stories high. Many of the windows were broken. The ground surrounding the structure had been neglected, so weeds grew up to Pearl's knees. In its glory days, the Button Factory had been filled with the sounds of machinery grinding, people chatting, and delivery trucks coming and going. But now only the occasional growl escaped from the broken panes. The place looked like a hotel for ghosts. At precisely 8 o'clock, the doorknob turned. Pearl's heart did a little flutter. This was always an exciting moment, anticipation building like steam in a kettle. The front door opened and out stepped Dr. Wu's assistant, Mr. Tabby. He always looked like a butler, and today was no different. He wore a pair of perfectly pressed pants, a crisp white shirt, and a burgundy velveteen vest. His long red hair was tied back in a ribbon, and his mustache was waxed into individual strands, like whiskers. As he walked down the driveway, gravel crunched beneath his polished black shoes. "What's he carrying?" Pearl asked. "Kind of looks like a suitcase," Ben said. Indeed, while one of Mr. Tabby's hands held the ring of keys, the other pulled a wheeled plaid bag. Pearl and Ben stepped back while Mr. Tabby unlocked the padlock. The brass key ring reminded Pearl of the kind that bulls wore in their snouts. Then Mr. Tabby swung the gate open. "Good morning," he said, his nose sniffing the air, and a low growl vibrated in his throat. "Do I detect the scent of a dachshund?" "A dash what?" said Pearl. "That's the official name for wiener dogs," said Ben. Then he held his palms up to Mr. Tabby's nose. "I petted a pair of them." "Oh yeah, they belong to my great Aunt Gladys," Pearl told him. "Wow, you've really got a good sniffer." "I am not fond of dogs, wiener or otherwise." Mr. Tabby's upper lip curled with disgust. "Canines are drooling creatures that do their business on public sidewalks. Very distasteful." He leaned close to Ben. "What sort of hat is that you are wearing?" "Oh, I forgot that I was wearing it," Ben said, pulling the knitted yellow cap from his head. "My great Aunt Gladys made it," Pearl said. "She made one in every color. I got all of them. Do you want her to make you one?" Mr. Tabby stroked his mustache. "I am not fond of hats, knitted or otherwise. They tend to mess up my hair." He rolled his suitcase onto the sidewalk. "Are you leaving?" Ben asked, stuffing his hat into his back pocket. "Indeed, I am taking my once-a-year vacation." "Where are you going?" Pearl asked. She and her family rarely took vacations. They worked so hard at the dollar store that it was difficult to get away. "I am visiting a luxurious spa where I will get a manicure, a pedicure, and a relaxing scalp massage." Was he making a purring sound? "It is very stressful being the assistant to the world's only veterinarian for imaginary creatures. Too much stress can make my fur fall out." "Fur?" Pearl asked. Wait, did you say fur?" Mr. Tabby glanced away. "I said nothing of the sort." A taxicab pulled up to the curb and the driver got out. "Hey, you the gentleman I'm supposed to take to the airport?" "That is correct, good man." Mr. Tabby smiled politely. He handed his suitcase to the driver, who put it into the taxi's trunk. And while the driver climbed back into the cab, Mr. Tabby gave the key ring to Ben. "Be certain to lock the gate and do not forget to—" I know, Ben said. "Don't forget to lock the front door. You don't have to keep reminding me." Ben was a little bit sensitive about the subject. He had forgotten to lock the door the first time that he and Pearl visited the hospital, resulting in the escape of the Sasquatch. Mr. Tabby's mustache twitched. "It is my duty to remind you of such things, especially in the light of the new situation," and his yellow irises flashed. A little shiver trickled down the back of Pearl's neck. "What situation?" My trip is ill-timed, I am afraid, but Dr. Wu insists that I go." Mr. Tabby looked over his shoulder to the taxi driver. He still sat in the front of the car, paying absolutely no attention to the conversation. Mr. Tabby motioned for the kids to come close, and as they looked up at him, he lowered his voice in a secretive way. "There has been a sighting." "A what?" Ben asked. "A sighting. A sighting in the imaginary world of a human." Pearl and Ben looked at each other. Mr. Tabby said the word human as if he were talking about a piece of food that had gone bad. Mr. Tabby continued, "And because we do not know the whereabouts of the human or how he entered the imaginary world, we must increase our security efforts. The hospital gate and the front door are to remain locked at all times." Ben's cheeks went red. "I won't leave them unlocked again, I promise. And the rules are to be followed at all times. Do you understand?" Pearl didn't argue. She and Ben had been apprentices for less than a week, and already they had broken more rules than she could remember, including traveling through the portal without permission and taking a leprechaun out of the hospital. "Yes," they both replied. "We understand." "Very good. Now, do you remember your task for today?" He tapped his shoe against the sidewalk as he waited for their reply. "Yep," Ben said. "We have to trim the Sasquatch's nose hairs." "To precisely 1/4 of an inch," Mr. Tabby added. Pearl groaned. "Ugh, it sounds disgusting. Do we have to?" "Do you have to?" Mr. Tabby's mustache twitched again. "Need I remind you that on Wednesday you did not dispose of dragon droppings in the correct manner, hence your punishment?" "Okay," Pearl said. She really couldn't argue about this. After all, it had been her idea to toss the droppings off the edge of the roof. "You will find the trimming device in the supply closet. It requires 10 batteries. Sasquatch nasal foliage is very stubborn and thick." He turned briskly on his heels and strode toward the cab, and after slipping inside, he rolled down the window and gave Ben and Pearl one last piece of information. "In light of the dangerous situation, I installed extra security behind our front door. Good day." "Dangerous," Ben said. He and Pearl watched the cab drive away. How dangerous? One thing Pearl had learned about Ben Silverstein is that he did not like danger. He didn't like breaking rules either. "I'm sure he was just exaggerating," Pearl said, trying to make Ben feel better. "Come on, let's go in." Ben locked the gate, checking it twice to make sure that it was secure, and then he headed up the driveway. "Do you think the situation is dangerous because the human is dangerous?" The ring of keys dangled from Ben's fingertips. "Or do you think that it's dangerous because someone else knows how to get into the imaginary world?" "I'm not sure," Pearl said with a shrug. "But I had nothing to do with it." She was so used to people pointing fingers, accusing her of making trouble, that defending herself was a natural reaction. "I would never tell anyone how to get into the imaginary world." "Me either," Ben said. Pearl believed him. She had no reason not to. Sure, Ben liked to make up stories, but it made no sense that he would spill any of Dr. Wu's secrets. Neither one of them wanted to risk losing their apprenticeship. They walked up the steps and stood facing the front door. A familiar sign was taped outside. The Worm Hospital is closed until it is open. But there was something new about the door. A small hole had been drilled into it. It's a peephole, Ben said. That's the extra security? Pearl was about to tell Ben to use the key, but that's when an eyeball appeared in the other side of the peephole. A loud growl slithered out of the crack at the bottom of the door. Dun dun dun.